If you're struggling with anxiety, you've probably tried everything. You might have tried breathing exercises, yoga, meditation, supplements, any lifestyle adjustment to help ease your anxiety symptoms. You might have tried diet. You might have tried a whole variation of things. And you might be starting to understand that a lot of this has nothing to do with lifestyle adjustments, but how you're responding to your anxiety. Now, what happens is when people are going through the recovery journey and they recognize that a lot of this has to do with their nervous system being sensitized and that their hyperstimulated nervous system is creating a lot of these symptoms, well, responding to their symptoms will eventually make it go away. Well, that's the goal, right? That's what we talk about in this channel as well. But I want to ask you, is responding enough to make this go away? Well, in this video, I really want to break it down, and I want to break down some of the nuances to recovery, some of the things that people tend to overlook so that you can be best set up for success in your journey. So with that said, let's get it started. Now, if you're new to the channel and you have no idea what I mean by responding to your symptoms, you might not even know how your nervous system is sensitized, how your nervous system even plays a part in all this, I'll put a link down below to a desensitization blueprint. This is the exact blueprint that we've helped people around the world overcome their symptoms. And basically what's happening is that assuming you've gotten everything ruled out by your doctors, you've gotten a clean bill of health, but you can't understand why you're experiencing these bizarre, mysterious physical symptoms, these scary intrusive thoughts, the depersonalization, derealization, the panic attacks, well then in that case, your nervous system has become very sensitized. And the sensitization occurs because your body has hit a stress threshold. So what's happened is that your nervous system has become very sensitive and the symptoms you're experiencing is a consequence to that. The blueprint down below shows you the mechanics of what's happening, what doctors often call anxiety, and really how to reverse the cycle. It shows you the steps and principles to overcoming this, including how to respond to your symptoms. Responding to your symptoms long-term, you'll see, helps your nervous system desensitize, and as a consequence, the symptoms go away. But in this video, I really want to ask for the people that have been focused on the recovery journey, is responding enough? If you're aware of the 5 F's, right? Fixing, fighting, fearing, getting frustrated, focusing. If you're avoiding those things and you're focusing on the response, what we call the alarm method, which again, you can see in that blueprint down below, is that enough to recover? Take a good minute and think about this, right? If you're just responding to your symptoms every single time it pops up and you're living life, is that enough? Well, while that is a great starting point, believe it or not, it's not actually enough. Anxiety recovery, I like to break it down in 3 separate pillars. In the program, we call this BBP, Bye-Bye Panic, and each pillar has its own thing. The first is body, and that is understanding the mechanics of anxiety, understanding why you're experiencing these symptoms, getting a good idea of how anxiety works, how the fight, flight, freeze response works, and really why you're experiencing these symptoms from a physiological level. Then the second is behavior. I'll come to that, but then the last, which is the P, right? BBP, the P stands for presence, which is responding, right? In the present moment, how are you responding? And the method we talk about is the alarm method. Now, understanding these 3 pillars, going back to the question of if you know what's happening and if you know how to respond, is that enough for your recovery journey? Well, believe it or not, it's not. And one of the biggest aspects that gets neglected is the behaviors portion, which is understanding the mindsets and habits and stories that are at play. And what I mean by this is, how do you talk to yourself? If you were helping somebody in the recovery journey and they were struggling with their symptoms and they didn't know how to overcome it, how would you talk to that person? Would that be different than how you talk to yourself? What I find with a lot of people on the recovery journey is that they are responding to their symptoms. They know why this is happening, but they don't talk to themselves well. One of the mentors in the mentorship, Kaylee, she talks a lot about self-compassion. And one of the best ways to find out how you talk to yourself is, how do you talk to yourself when your symptoms come back? Let's say when you're in the middle of a setback or you're having a really rough day. How do you treat yourself? Do you beat yourself up? Do you feel like you're never going to come out of this? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Do you feel shame? Do you feel guilt? Are you extremely tough on yourself in these moments? It's very interesting. When you're having good days, everyone's really pleasant. Everyone is really nice when everything is going their way. But I always say, if you really want to get to know somebody, get to know when they feel like they're at rock bottom, when they've hit their lowest point. How are they reacting there? That is a big indicator of how someone truly is. And I find a lot of people that are in the recovery journey are extremely hard with themselves. They start beating themselves up. Like, why am I so stupid? Why can't I just overcome this? Why is this happening to me out of everybody else? I just need to let it be, but I can't do it for the life of me. And I'm just so frustrated with everything that's going on. Do you see what's happening here? Do you see how really what you're dealing with is a difficult situation, and how you are reacting is how you react? This has nothing to do with anxiety. You beating yourself up, you feeling shame, guilt, anytime you get frustrated, this has nothing to do with anxiety, but with your own behaviors at play. You can respond correctly to your anxiety as much as you want. But in other domains in life, when things don't go your way, if you get frustrated, if you get angry, it doesn't matter. Your nervous system will always get sensitized. You will always be in this fight or flight mode. So what do? The biggest focus is having self-compassion. When we are guiding people through the recovery journey, so many people tell us, guys, you guys are so patient. The recovery team is so patient. I just don't know how you do it. Well, it's very clear. Look, if being hard on you worked, if beating you down and making you feel bad about how you're responding worked, we would do it. But the truth is that it never works. At the end of the day, all I care about is what works. What are the tools that are going to help you overcome this and go back to living? And if beating yourself up and feeling frustrated, having shame, having guilt, feeling sorry for yourself worked, by all means do it. But it doesn't. All it does is that it keeps your eye off the prize and it just wastes more time. So it's incredibly important to have self-compassion on your journey. If something comes up, it's okay. We will figure it out. If things don't go your way, that's okay. Maybe it was never meant to be. You'll find another way. You might notice that these behaviors and patterns that might have helped you in other aspects in life are not just not helpful in the recovery journey, but counterproductive. A big part of recovery is learning when to utilize what skill sets, when to put pressure on something to move the needle forward, but also when to back off and recognize that you need to have self-compassion, you need to have patience on this journey, and you need to treat yourself with empathy and realize when things aren't going your way, recognizing that this is an opportunity to respond. Responding isn't just in the silo of your symptoms. This is not just responding to your symptoms, and everywhere else in life you can behave the same way, the erratic way of you getting angry or frustrated on other aspects, but with anxiety you have to treat yourself with patience. You have to treat yourself with patience overall. You have to have that self-compassion. If you are focused on overcoming this and you want to help others, well, ask yourself, if someone was going through this, how would you talk to that person? And is that different than how you would talk to yourself? Responding is a great place to start, but I would challenge you to ask yourself, how are you talking to yourself and other aspects? When things don't go your way, what are some elements that you feel might not be helpful? And learn to let that go. Unlearn that habit too. The way you speak to yourself is also just a story. It's another narrative. It's something you picked up over time. In other words, it's just another habit. Learn to let go of habits that don't serve you. Or at the very least, learn when to utilize that habit and also when to not use it. Like I mentioned, if it helps you on the journey, use it. But what I often find is when people behave a certain way, when they are beating themselves up, when they get frustrated really easily, it doesn't help. It doesn't help anybody. It just gets people distracted and it just turns into another spiral that just doesn't really serve you. Now, while we're on this topic, I want to bring up something else, and I briefly mentioned it earlier, which is, what are the stories you are telling yourself? And when I mean stories, I want to give you an example to really highlight what I mean here. We have a member in the mentorship who is really dealing with this. Now, this person is back to living. From the last time I talked, their symptoms are gone. They're back to living. Life is good. But when they first joined, they asked me, they said, Shaan, you don't really talk about low blood sugar level when it comes to anxiety. Why is it that you never talk about this? Is this something you can explain to me when you're dealing with low blood sugar level and how anxiety affects that? And I basically asked that person, did your doctor say you have low blood sugar levels? And that person said, no, all my tests came back clear. And so then I naturally said, okay, well, then why are you bringing up low blood sugar levels if that's not something you're dealing with? And what this person said was really interesting. They said, Shaan, I feel like I'm dealing with low blood sugar levels. I'm dealing with the dizziness. I feel like I'm about to pass out. I don't have the energy. I'm afraid that if I stand up, I'm just going to collapse and faint. And so I naturally said, okay, but where does the low blood sugar level come from? Like, who told you this where you were fearing this idea of low blood sugar levels? And they said, Shaan, it just feels like this. And so did you catch this? Okay, so what happened is that this person was telling themselves a story that they had low blood sugar levels. Even though they had everything rolled out and the doctor said it's fine, you've never had a history of it, that's not something you're dealing with, and yet they were still fearing low blood sugar levels. Why? Because they were telling themselves this story. Now, what is really going on? They were never dealing with low blood sugar levels. They were just dealing with feelings of dizziness, of feeling tired, and they just had a fear of fainting. But none of that means that just because you're experiencing those things, that you have low blood sugar levels. And this is incredibly important, and this is what I see always from people that are in the beginning stages of recovery. They start self-diagnosing themselves with things just based on how they feel. Now, you might come to the conclusion of don't self-diagnose, but it's not just that. It is, what are the stories you are telling yourself constantly? For this person, the most obvious thing is that they were telling themselves the story of they have low blood sugar. And if they have low blood sugar and if their nervous system really believes that, then why wouldn't their anxiety go up? If that was something I was dealing with right now, even my anxiety would go up. But this person was just dealing with a made up story. It was a phantom symptom. It was a phantom diagnosis that they made. And what happened as a consequence is that their nervous system started reacting like that. Their anxiety went up. It became a survival response. Look, at the end of the day, your nervous system doesn't know what's real and what's not. It looks at you for that. And if you behave in certain ways where you feel like you have something, well, then naturally your nervous system is going to find ways to keep you alive, to be a little bit more alert. And what happens as a consequence of that is that you start naturally experiencing symptoms. So I want to challenge you. What stories are you telling yourself? Believe it or not, it's not the stories that you feel like are the most obvious. It's going to be those things that you automatically assume and you don't even recognize. I was afraid that I had terrible digestive problems, an autoimmune condition, and I always felt like I had this autoimmune condition, but that was a story that I was telling myself. I was also telling myself the story that no one else is going to be able to get out of this. I've never seen anybody go through this. And these were the things that I had to learn to let go of. It wasn't just responding to my symptoms. When the symptoms came up, just let them pass. I had to be aware of, what am I telling myself? What were my beliefs? What were my habits? What were my mindsets? What were my behaviors that were making me fall into the cycle? These things are not that obvious to someone who's going through the journey. Oftentimes they're blind spots. And so if you're on the recovery journey, you can try to figure this out on yourself. But like I say, if you're focused on accelerating this, going back to living, the best way is by being in a community of people that have recovered, being guided by people that have overcome this, being around people that are more aware of your blind spots. So I hope this video helps. If you want more resources down below, check it out. If you want to apply for the recovery program, for the mentorship, I'll also put the link for that down below. We've been getting an insane amount of applicants lately. Just last month, which was August of 2023, we had almost 1,000 applicants. And so if you want to know more, click the link down below. I can't guarantee that, we can have a meeting to see if the mentorship fits. But if the link works down below and if you apply and if there's spots and if it's a right fit for you, we will let you know more, and we can guide you on the recovery ourselves and help you go back to living fully and freely. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.